So quick intro to Derek. Derek's the CEO of PureStake and also building the project Moonbeam, which, as I mentioned, will be a parachain on Polkadot as well as Kusama. And Derek will be kind of giving us more insight into all their latest progress, and I'm sure much more. So Derek, I'll just hand it over to you. And thanks for coming on.
No, yeah. So thanks, Dan. Thanks for the intro there. So I thought I'd start with a bit of a question here, and I'm also going to start with a bit of a story to answer this question. So the question is, what is the best blockchain? A question that comes up quite a bit. People obviously have quite a bit of opinions on what the answer to this question is. And if you've seen any of my previous talks, I sometimes look for the answers to questions in different areas and blockchain, but this story is actually from something totally different than blockchains. But I think there is actually a very deep and kind of philosophical point around the story. So the story comes from a TED Talk that Malcolm Gladwell gave probably almost 20 years ago now. And it's something that stuck with me and that I think about actually, quite a bit in certain instances. And so the story goes like this: that in the 1970s, there was a guy named Howard Moskowitz, and he was kind of a consultant to the food industry. And this is when people were starting to kind of use like statistical techniques, right, to run experiments to be able to improve their food products. And so he, one of his initial customers was Pepsi. And the question that Pepsi had, they were interested in kind of improving their Diet Pepsi product. And they were going to use this new sweetener, aspartame, to do that. And the question was, we kind of want to make the best Diet Pepsi we can. What is the right amount of aspartame to put in it? And so to answer this question, Howard ran a bunch of tests, right? So he kind of created batches. He created, batches that I think that they knew that the right number had to be somewhere between 8% and 12%. So, he made batches of different strengths and invited people in and had them try it, collected a whole bunch of data and looked at the data. And, the problem was the data, he was expecting this kind of like a bell curve or a distribution or something that suggested like what the optimal value would be for this aspartame. And the data was kind of this mess, right? It didn't actually tell him like what amount to put in. And this result kind of really bothered him. I mean, I think in the end they kind of ended up just going right in the middle. But this result kind of bothered him as to like, well, why is it that we couldn't find an answer to this question? And at some point he kind of realized, what, like I've kind of figured out what the problem is. The problem is we were asking what the right Pepsi, what the perfect Pepsi was, but really we should have been looking for, what different kinds of Pepsis would have been good. And, people were like, well, what are you talking about? Different kinds? Like that doesn't make any sense. So, the famous part of the story about this guy is he was then engaged by this company, Campbell's, who makes a spaghetti sauce called Prego. And they, again, were kind of wanting his help to figure out, well, how do I make the best possible spaghetti sauce? And this time around, he did the same thing where he ran a bunch of experiments and came up with a whole bunch of data. I think he had, different formulations of sauce. And when he analyzed the data, instead of looking for a single best answer, he did this kind of cluster analysis, like you see on the right, to figure out, well, where are there groupings of kind of answers to this question? And it turns out that when he looked at it this way, he realized that there was, multiple different clusters that of interest and where people kind of like gathered around. There was, I think, spicy, there was plain, and then there was chunky. And it's in particular, this chunky result is the one that was, kind of like notable because people didn't, sauce wasn't supposed to be like that, right? And so the kind of the point of the story is that, whereas in the 70s there was kind of one of these things, right? It was like this, there was one kind of spaghetti sauce, one kind of mustard, one kind of, all of these foods. Think about today, right? I mean, these ideas that Howard had really have changed kind of the landscape quite a bit. Where, I mean, I was just looking here at, at the Prego site and putting this presentation together, and there's like 100 different kinds there. I mean, even in the chunky variety, there's, garden cheese, there's 3 different kinds. And so I think the deep point for me here, and tying it back to blockchains, is I think when you ask the question, what's the best blockchain, you're already kind of framing things in kind of this wrong way that these other companies did, right? The answer is not that there's one best blockchain, but that there's many. And it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish, what your users want, what your use case is. And so, I kind of think about this, example, quite a bit when I'm thinking about, the blockchain space. And to tie it back to Substrate, I'm sure that the people who created, a parody who created Substrate weren't thinking of the food business or spaghetti sauce or any of these things, but they understood this point, right? They understood this point around, there not being kind of one best blockchain to be created. And that's why, there's really been some great care taken in Substrate to, remove the opinionation, right? And there's different levels at which you can use Substrate. It's very, very customizable in terms of, changing even some of the underlying primitives. That's some of the work that we're doing. And so, in some sense, when we're talking about Substrate is, all of these different chains that are being created using Substrate, whether they're chains or even chains that ultimately will be deployed to Kusama. And I think for, a lot of you that are building chains, you're going to be building, kind of the best blockchain for, your particular use case. This is just a very, very powerful idea, and kind of one of the reasons why, myself and, the team at PureStake is so drawn to Substrate, Kusama, Polkadot, and this ecosystem, this idea that, you can have many different specialized chains. They can be optimized for a particular purpose, but then they can also cooperate, when they're deployed onto a common network like Kusama or like Polkadot. So I think that's a little bit of background and context to be able to talk about, our best blockchain. As Dan mentioned, the project is called Moonbeam. And just a little bit of background on what it is. It is a substrate-based parachain. We do have plans to Kusama and to Polkadot. The main feature set of Moonbeam is that it is an Ethereum-compatible smart contracts parachain. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that, we have basically, we're striving for as full Ethereum support as possible, but implemented, in Substrate as a parachain. That includes a full Ethereum virtual machine, so a full EVM, as well as an implementation of Web3 RPCs. That basically allows, existing dApps, existing tools to Moonbeam node and think that they're connected to, just another Ethereum network. So that gives, opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. It is designed to run smart contracts. One question that, comes up is, well, why smart contracts? Obviously you have Substrate and you can build, a parachain or parathread with Substrate. Why do you need smart contracts? It turns out that the answer is there are a number of reasons. For some projects, using Substrate to build, a full parachain or parathread is the right answer, particularly in cases where you need full control of the entire environment. You really want to optimize to a low level, the economics and kind of storage and, all of the things that go into kind of the underlying, runtime implementation. But for other, use cases and projects, a smart contract really is going to be the better answer. You basically outsource a lot of the lower level functions to the platform, such as Moonbeam, and really you're just focusing on, the implementation of logic, on top of that smart contract platform. It's, quite a bit simpler and easier, to implement a smart contract backend for certain use cases. For us, here at PureStake, working on Moonbeam, the interoperability features of both Kusama and Polkadot are really one of the key motivations for us. As more of those chain integration features, come into, get released onto the relay chains of Kusama and Polkadot, we're going to be we'll be adding basically support for that interoperability on Moonbeam, kind of extending this Ethereum feature set. And so just to talk a little bit about, what the goals of the project are and who we're trying, really we're here looking to work with existing projects that have Ethereum deployments. And the thing that we're trying to do is not to convince anyone to move anywhere. I mean, that's not something that we see as all that realistic, given that there is a lot on Ethereum. There's a lot of dependencies a lot of projects have on composing with other. However, there are certain things that are challenging. So certain workloads are quite expensive to run on the Ethereum mainnet, at least at layer 1. And so the idea is to allow for the movement of some of those workloads to Moonbeam while minimizing change because of the Ethereum compatibility feature set, and then simultaneously helping those projects expand their reach to Polkadot, to users and assets that are in the Polkadot ecosystem, and kind of a scalability through multi-chain, if that makes sense. Putting on kind of the the Polkadot and Kusama points of view, we kind of see ourselves as serving on it as this kind of easy on-ramp. So there's for people that are just familiar with the Ethereum technology stack, it makes for an easy kind of approach to use something like Moonbeam. We can offer then the choice of using the Ethereum developer toolset to build on Kusama and Polkadot. And I mentioned already kind of our interest in these cross-chain integration scenarios. So that's really a lot of our motivation. Now, wanted to just kind of show you some examples. Just given time, I'm not going to do a live demo here, although I did just have another recorded session earlier this week where I did do a live demo. If you're interested, you can definitely refer back to that. But here's an example of just using standard Ethereum tools such as MetaMask, but connecting them to a Moonbeam node, which is a Substrate-based node. And so here we're just configuring MetaMask to connect to Moonbeam, and you can see that MetaMask happily kind of believes it's connected to just yet another Ethereum network. Kind of the reason that's possible is this support for the Web3 RPC endpoints, in addition to the Substrate RPC endpoints, in a Moonbeam node. Here's another example, using Remix. For those of you not familiar, Remix is just one of the standard IDEs used for developing smart contracts on Ethereum. In this case, there's just a simple kind of E20 smart contract that's being deployed to Moonbeam. And of course, then, with MetaMask, you can see here just a small screenshot I took of that deployed smart contract at ERC20. Represented, inside MetaMask, connected to a Moonbeam node. So that's what that is. And last but not least, in terms of screenshots here, there's support for both the Web3 RPC endpoints as well as the Substrate ones, right? So it is a Substrate-based implementation. And so there are some custom types that you see on the right that need to be added to your Polkadot.js apps. But once you do that, then you can interact with the node using the regular Substrate APIs that probably many of you have been working with as you're developing your Kusama-based projects. So you kind of have this option of working with the node with the Web3 RPCs or with the Substrate APIs. So just to speak a little bit about some of the components that are kind of under the hood within Moonbeam. Obviously built on some modules being used as we build our runtime. There is a set of components that are part of a project called Frontier that provides some of the some of the Ethereum compatibility functionality that I was just speaking of. So Frontier is a separate project that's under the Parity GitHub. And we're, the PureStake team, we are actually contributing, directly into that repo to help create some of this Ethereum compatibility feature set, which we're then pulling into Moonbeam. And we're, of course, have a number of frame palettes, included in our runtime, such as, ones powering on-chain governance, balances, and, other functions. So that's a little bit of the high-level, kind of an architecture of what's inside of the Moonbeam node. And just in terms of kind of what we're working on now, we are kind of just wrapping up some of the work on the Web3 RPC endpoints as part of the Ethereum compatibility feature set. We are just finishing a grant actually that we received from the Web3 Foundation to work on those. We are on kind of a collator incentivization, our collator incentive scheme that will be part of us running as a parachain, initially on Kusama, but then also on the Polkadot network. And we are working right now on a parachain-based testnet for Moonbeam. For those of you that aren't aware, Cumulus library and a lot of the support for parachains has been under very active development, and that's just kind of reaching a completion point now. So we're opting, instead of having a Substrate standalone testnet, we're going straight to like a parachain based testnet in preparation for our deployment to Kusama by the end of the year as a parachain. And I think that's wanted to just throw out there, if there's interest in kind of learning more about Moonbeam, or even perhaps using some of these Ethereum compatibility features, if there's folks that are building their own parachains, that's also a possibility. I'd encourage you to our website, join our Riot room is where most of the technical questions would be asked if anyone's interested in exploring this further. And we do have a doc site that was recently launched that has a number of guides, tutorials, videos, and other resources that's linked off of the website page. You can feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm on Riot as Mechanical Watch or via email. And I think that's a good overview. Back here.
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you very much. This was awesome as always. I think what we're all waiting for is Cumulus, right? This is that piece of software. For anybody that doesn't know, Cumulus will allow substrate-based chains to actually connect to the relay chain of Kusama and also of Polkadot. But Derek, a question for you. You guys have been working on this for a very long time, right? We're close to, Polkadot is in the midst of launch. Kusama launched months ago. Tell us a little bit about your tech progress, where you are right now. Are there any pieces of your software that maybe a participant in Hack Kusama could already use? Could you reference people to something that they could look at?
Yeah, so I think I would encourage people to take a look at our doc site. So what we have now is we do have, all those screenshots are from like a working node that it can has these Ethereum compatibility features in it. So those guys are generally have instructions for basically downloading from our GitHub, building a local node to run in dev mode, and then that will allow you to use the Ethereum compatibility features. I think for folks building their own parachain as a hack project, one thing that could be interesting would be to look at using these frontier components, to basically include those in your chain to get at this Ethereum compatibility feature set. It is pretty fresh off the presses, so I can't say that it's been thoroughly vetted in every which way, but we are kind of working on looking at more examples, fleshing out issues, and certainly, the ones that I described, using MetaMask, using Remix, using Truffle, we have tested some of those core paths. So, I'd say that the Ethereum feature set, the compatibility feature set and Substrate is definitely coming along. I'd say the areas where we need to work, as I mentioned, are kind of on this parachain infrastructure and like how we're going to incentivize collators. So those are areas that are kind of the next up things for us to like make sure that we implement in a good way. And I think that we kind of see the Cumulus development kind of heading towards like stability here, and that'll open the door for Kusama based parachain deployments, which we're pretty excited about, right? I think for us it's kind of like the fact that you can create your own blockchain is obviously a game changer, but this connection and the ability to integrate between these different chains, that I think is really the thing that like ups the ante a lot, right? Because that allows for a whole bunch of new use cases, and that's we're kind of even though we're a little bit on the bleeding edge on some of these, that's where that's really what we're focused on, trying to get everything working.
Absolutely, and if you think of it in 2, 3, 4 years in the future, I think this is just going to be one of the most sought after features, if you ask me. Right, the interconnection to Ethereum, which is one of the biggest ecosystems, one of the biggest communities, and just having that seamless connection to a Kusama or Polkadot-based chain, I think that's just, to my mind, that's a game changer. Looking at all the use cases being deployed on Ethereum, just having the ability to connect them over to some of these changes is insane, if you're asking. That would be incredible.
I mean, we obviously agree, and I think it goes back to that kind of like asking the right question. I think sometimes I find that people are kind of in this, I mean, even on the question of, well, where should I deploy? And the answer is, oh, you should deploy on Ethereum or on Polkadot or on something. But it's the same as I mentioned in the beginning. I think that framing of the question is like not quite right. Yeah. I think what I expect to see is more of these kind of hybrid deployments where your app, just like in Web2 world, right? Your app may be in Azure, maybe in AWS, may have some specialized SendGrid, may have other services. I think apps of the future will tend to be these multi-chain deployments where you can use the specialized functionality of each chain and kind of combine those elements together to create, your overall effect. So I think, that's kind of what we anticipate seeing, and that's what we think, Kusama and Polkadot will really help enable.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, once you build a Web2 application, it's not built on one Azure, for instance, or SAP or whatever. Right? It overlays all of these different sources, which is probably the vision for Web3 as well. It should not matter whether it's Ethereum first, Bitcoin first, or whatever. It should be a Web3 higher level application. So we definitely all agree on that. Right. I do think we have a question from Patrick Collins from Chainlink. Can you deploy to Moonbeam via Remix?
Yes. Sure. Yeah. So we actually have, I think, a video is about to go up to demonstrate that. But in the end, if with the kind of Web3 RPC API set being supported, then the cool thing is like all of the existing Ethereum tools, just kind of work basically, right? Because that's the API that they use to connect to Ethereum. So we do have, we have a tutorial and a guide, and then a video I think is just going up maybe today or tomorrow, showing how to do that. So
Patrick says, "Whoa!" I think that's good. But yeah.
Here,
okay.
That just came in. Derek, they're asking, how can I participate in Moonbeam or with Moonbeam if I'm not a developer? This person's already participating in staking with PureStake at the moment. So any way for them to participate now, or like where should people go to follow updates, things like that?
Yeah.
Nate could drop some links in here too.
Yeah, I think Nate, it looks like Nate is dropping some links in here. So yeah, obviously you can follow us on Twitter, and we do have a Telegram. We are going to be launching a number of programs here in the second half of the year. So we are going to be launching kind of a grants program, and have some other programs where non-developers can basically engage and. And I would say that while of course it's a developer platform, so part of our focus is on speaking with teams and making sure that we're solving good problems for developers, or important problems for developers. We are also big believers in, so for example, like if you just look at the content on our doc site, producing decent quality content so people can understand what's how to use your thing is almost as important, if not equally important, to building like the actual tools, right? So we do plan on we do have a lot of ideas on things to do there, and that's an area we're certainly with other kinds of content is a place where we could we could have help from we could definitely use help from folks that are not necessarily coders.
Cool. So Edwin, hopefully that helps. Follow Moonbeam, and they'll keep you updated. So we've got about 10 minutes till the top of the hour. Just so everyone knows and Jessica knows, we can go over a little bit, so that'll probably happen. But just want to say thanks to Derek, as always, for the great presentation, and we're really excited about what you guys are building and looking forward to the rest of this quarter and end of the year and into next year. So
yeah,
good luck to you guys, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.